The hills are alive with the sound of music.
There you go.
My top 3 favorite movies, Moulin Rouge.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Do crunches for abs. Lift heavy to build muscle. You need 1 pound of protein per body weight. In today's video, we're going to go through 5 fitness myths that's still present today. Good day, beautiful people, and welcome to another episode of For Health and Happiness, live from Irie Studio. I'm your host, IBB Pro Hafid James, and today we're going to be talking about fitness myths. Now, funny enough, this was not today's topic. We were going to continue our conversation on reasons why people failed, and today we're actually going to talk about injuries. But it's been crazy over the last few weeks, the amount of people that's come to me and they've wanted to ask about certain fitness myths or certain things I've seen. Even on that, I appreciate when you guys want to come up to me and tell me how much you like the podcast and even ask me questions. But please, before you come up to me, leave a comment on the page. Like, follow, share. This what really helps to grow the channel. It helps tell the algorithm gods that, hey, this might be something popular, and it helps to tell it to other people to come watch the video. So I don't mind when you come up to me. If I'm being perfectly honest, it depends on when. Like, if you guys are coming up to me when I'm at work or training, that's not the best time to talk to me. But I promise you, I answer all the comments. If I see certain things, I can do a whole segment on it. And it's easier for me to communicate to you. And then there might be something that's going on with you that can help other people. So just make sure, leave a comment, share it, watch a video, click on a few other videos, and help grow the podcast. We're almost at 5,000 subscribers, which was crazy. Like, my end of year goal was just to get 1,000 people. So to almost be at 5,000, again, it just tells me I'm hoping that the information is relative, it's useful. At the end of the day, I don't want success to be subscribers. I want success to be, hey, this guy's just giving me health from a different perspective and has actually been useful for how I might be approaching my health goals, rather being building muscle, losing weight, whatever the case may be. But because of the amount of comments and just people coming up to me, yesterday I just said, I'm going to switch gears today, and I wanted to go over just 5 fitness myths that I've had to deal with this week. The first one: do crunches to build abs. Now, I think a lot of the confusion comes from that burning feeling you feel when you're doing crunches, very close to that burning feeling in your glutes when people's doing band work and they're thinking, oh, I'm growing my glutes. Just because you're feeling that burning feeling doesn't mean it's effective for what you think it's doing. Now, I'm a big believer, do what makes you happy. But if you're doing something and you're trying to expect a certain goal, if you keep doing the wrong thing, you're not going to get any closer to that goal until you get frustrated. Now, if you're trying to create abs, if you're trying to see your abs, the best thing to do is just lower your body fat. If you look at a picture of me now versus a picture of me before I compete, right now I'm probably at like 12% body fat. When I compete, I'm going to be closer to 5% body fat. You're going to see a lot more definition because I have a lot less body fat on me. And you can look at most bodybuilders. That is what you're looking for. They're really lean, so you can actually see the muscle underneath because we've taken off that layer of fat. But I think people see that look, and then all you got to do is see someone doing some weird crunch thing, and you're like, oh, okay, well, this is why I never got my abs, because I wasn't doing this particular crunch exercise. If we go back to last week's video about, too much information, it's too easy for you to see someone have a certain look, and then you think you just got to copy that. The other thing when it comes to your abs, you got to know is a lot of it just comes down to your anatomy. Using a bodybuilder, it doesn't matter how lean they get. If their genetic structure is they'll only have a 4-pack, it doesn't matter how lean they get. They cannot create an 8-pack. The perfect example for this is even someone like The Rock. Like, The Rock can get pretty lean, but he's never had defined abs. It has nothing to do with, he's not doing crunches or he's not lean enough. It's just his anatomy. He just will never get big defined abs. So those are certain things you got to remember. Again, don't get caught up in seeing someone with an 8-pack and they're saying, well, I do this certain workout. And you think, okay, if I just do that over and over again every day, then maybe I can get that. Honestly, from what I've seen when people do crunches, you're more likely to hurt your neck or your back than actually get a 6-pack. Oh, I like that. I didn't even mean to make that rhyme. What I would always say to kind of focus on is your core. Now your abs is the muscle that sits on top, the visible thing that you can see. Your core sits underneath those abs. Think of it like a belt that actually wraps around your whole torso. I'm big in really working your core to prevent lower back pain. If you have lower back pain, that's a very important area you should kind of focus on. So I'm not a big fan of crunches. Now, there are certain ways you could do crunches that's not hurtful. Again, one, not pulling on your neck or not causing too much flexion in your lower back, in your lumbar. Doing that for too long can cause problems. Doing it too aggressively can cause problems. So I would always prefer planks. But even doing planks, you want to make sure you're doing it right. You want to know you're not just holding a plank, randomly holding a plank, that you actually feel your core is engaged. And I would just say the best thing to do is kind of record yourself doing a plank. If you see a big arch in your back while you're trying to hold a plank, your lower back is going to activate sooner or later. So what I like to tell my clients is intentionally activate your abs. Feel that they're engaged. One of the best cues I would tell people is pretend like someone's going to punch you in the stomach or you're going to take a poop. You should feel your core activate and you want to be able to hold that position. Now, certain things I would do for my core is one, the McGill Big Three. Now that includes doing a curl up, which is really good to teach you how to activate your core. One of the things I see when I have a new client and I'll talk to them about brace, they automatically want to suck in their torso. That is not the best way to activate your core. You want to think brace to add that stability, that pressure in your core to make sure you're not able to rock around and you're giving that lower back some protection. The bird dog is really great just to teach you how to stabilize. When you're thinking of your core, you're thinking of stability. So to have one hand up, or if you can make it really hard, one hand in the opposite leg and being able to hold it without shaking side to side or turning, you're working that stability. You're working your core if you're able to stabilize better. And then a side plank. That's good to help keep that posture, work those obliques better. You'll focus a bit more on those obliques. Those are three very important, I think, fundamental movements you could do to work your core. And then even just how you train. Like, I think most of my core work comes through my training. I'm not thinking about swinging back and forward. I'm making sure I can feel my core. I'm not rotating side to side. No matter what weight I'm lifting, no matter what I'm doing, I want to know I can stabilize and I'm in control. So if you're trying to create abs, by all means, do crunches if it makes you happy, but you want to focus more on reducing that body fat and revealing what's underneath. The next one, you need 1 pound of protein per body weight. Now, this one is always an interesting one. So I just want you to picture two people, 200-pound men. One is 10% body fat. One is 50% body fat. Why would they need the same amount of protein? I think so much people over intake in protein because probably they're not getting results and they think, well, maybe it's just not enough protein. And I'll be honest. Now, I go beast gym. Sometimes you go in the bathroom and you can actually smell the uric acid. It has like an ammonia smell. That is usually a product of waste from people who overeat protein. And I smell that often, unfortunately. So don't think you need just protein to build muscle. There's so many other factors when you're thinking of building muscle, even if you're just thinking of your nutrients. I would always say, if you're focusing on your omega-3s, because if you're training in the gym, that's an acute inflammatory response. We need that inflammation as part of the healing process. But if you're not getting enough anti-inflammatories, it's going to delay your recovery, which will then delay your results. Whenever you're thinking about strength or hypertrophy, it is simply you damaging the muscle and then you being able to recover. Your body understands what it's doing and has to adapt to it. And then that's where that strength gains, that's where those muscle gains come from. Another thing I would focus more on as well is your vitamin D3. That's again another power anti-inflammatory. It helps a lot with boosting your natural testosterone. It helps a lot with the absorption of calcium. I would always recommend pairing it with K2 to make sure the calcium goes into the bone, which again, if you're doing a lot of resistance training, a lot of heavy load lifting, you want to make sure your bones are strong. And then just think of your general recovery. You know, how's your water? How's your sleep? How all the other aspects? You would notice you don't need to focus as much on protein if you're taking that holistic approach. Once you're doing things effective, in my opinion, you shouldn't need as much of something for you to get the same results or hopefully even better. Now, who needs 1 gram of protein? I would always say that 1 gram of protein is not your body weight. You're thinking of your lean body weight. And that really, in my opinion, that will go to like a bodybuilder. That'll go to an athlete. If you're a serious gym enthusiast, that might apply to you as well. But in general, what I would do for most of my lifestyle clients, and I'm just talking about the average person, we just really focus on having a balanced meal. So usually I would just want, if they're a female client, on average, they might get about 75 grams of direct protein. If they're a male, I might bump it up a little bit more, again, depending on their experience, their activity level. So that might get a little bit closer to 100 grams. But I don't need to just focus on protein because we're thinking of the whole lifestyle. So we're doing so many different things, even just thinking of their hormones to boost those muscle growing hormones, that we don't have to put so much energy into their protein, especially because we're always looking for that higher quality of food, which means your body be able to absorb it better. So protein is a factor, but don't think you just starting out in the gym need to try and consume 1 pound of protein of your body weight. I would just say, learn what a balanced meal is, go from there. And even if you are a top athlete bodybuilder, focus more on that 1 gram for your lean body weight. The next one will be lifting heavy builds muscle. Now, there's a lot of problems with the gym culture, a lot of things that I just personally don't like. One of them is just seeing a bunch of guys around the bench circle jerk because someone hit some new max, but their form was horrible. Like, for me, all you're going to do is end up hurting yourself. But everyone will get all excited and they'll egg you on. In my opinion, I think if you're around people that don't know any better, yeah, you look cool. But if you're around people that actually know and understand how the body works, they're just trying to figure out, like, what are you doing and why? So many people get these shoulder injuries because they're trying to they think simply by holding a weight and trying to do a bench press, the fact that you held the weight is going to make you stronger, is going to help build the muscle, versus how are you actually using the weight? You would have your ignorant lifters. And to some extent, we're all ignorant. Not everyone knows everything, but that just simply knows maybe you just don't know better. Maybe you just see what the culture is and you're just adapting this culture, which is the problem of culture, that it becomes generational. But then you have those ego lifters. To me, an ego lifter, in the presence of the information, they still don't care. They still just want to lift heavy. And unfortunately, I've been in certain situations where a client didn't want to drop the weight because he was scared of how he'll look for everyone else. So they would literally delay their own results, increasing their chance of injury, just because, what would people think of me if I had to drop the weight? For me, I'm just focused on getting those results. I don't mind ever having to decrease the weight to make sure I'm lifting it properly. And then, because I know I'll slowly build back up anyway. Now, for me, my style of training, the weight I lift is the least important factor. I do have a video up on the page where I go more into detail about the factors that come before it. But just to kind of summarize, I'm thinking of my core and my posture. I'm thinking of my full range motion. I'm thinking of keeping the constant tension, making sure the muscles working the whole time. Once all those principles are in place, then yes, then I'm thinking of the weight. When you're in the gym, you are trying to have this micro trauma to the muscles, but focus is micro. The way some people lift, if they're just focusing on weight, they end up really doing some real damage to the muscle, but not in a positive way. And then you also have to remember that you're not just muscles. You're also joints. And, I've seen it where certain people are in programs where, like, every week they have to go up 5 pounds. But if you're focused on just the weight and you're not focusing on actually building the muscle, and you think you're just going to keep increasing the weight, you're not allowing the muscle to grow and recover with you. But then you're also not allowing your joints to grow and recover as well. And that is an easy way for you to hurt yourself, because your joints can't handle this weight you're just trying to throw on it. Yes, lifting heavy is a factor, but always think of how you're moving the weight. Are you able to go through your full range? Can you actually feel the right muscles doing the work? Or are you just focused on moving the weight from point A to point B, impressing whoever else is in the gym? Another one that I hear a lot from clients would be, I need motivation. Honestly, 99% of the times I hear people talk about motivation, they talk about how they're not motivated to do something. And for me, I don't like the word motivation. I always think it's important for you to have motivation, have as much different forms and sources of motivation to try and keep you going. But at the end of the day, I think you should be driven and not motivated. And for me, motivation is a feeling. It's, I'm not feeling motivated, so I'm not going to meal prep. I'm not feeling motivated, so I'm not going to go to the gym. Driven is, I don't feel like doing it, but I know this is what I have to do, so I'm just going to do it. When you're thinking of anyone going through a journey, you're going to hit those times where you don't feel like doing something for whatever reason. Now, sometimes give yourself grace. You might not do it. But if you're always just relying on a feeling, you'll never make it. One of the things I would like to tell my clients is think of someone you consider great, whoever that is. I'm sure during their process to greatness, there was a point in time where they didn't want to do it, where they wanted to give up, where they felt frustrated. But because they didn't get up, because they persevered and they just did what they knew should be done, is why you consider them great. When you're looking at this health fitness journey, for how difficult it is and how so much people don't make it, I view it as something great, as you becoming a greater version of yourself. So I would always just want you to think, don't get caught up in, well, I'm not feeling it. Do what you know you should do. For as long as I've been doing this, I've yet to have a client do what they know they should do and then regret it after. It's always the other way around. It's always, man, what if I stayed consistent? Man, what if I just did the meal prep? What if I had just listened? And that's a tough feeling to go through. You've put in the money, you've put in the time, you've put in the energy, but just because you didn't want to stay consistent, just because you relied on a feeling, you are never able to make it. And to be honest, sometimes that feeling could be more of a mental health thing, which is outside of my expertise and something I wouldn't talk about. But if you feel that might be a problem, that is where I would always recommend look into that mental health. There's so many people that don't make it to their goals because they ignored that mental health factor. And a lot of it's gotten better, but there is still that stigma of mental health means something's wrong with you. For me, I always just think it's providing you with tools. The same way how some people might come to me for training, they might have an injury that we might have to deal with. But I also have people that come to me that because they came to me, I can give them tools, give them understanding. So even if they're in certain situations, they now have the tools to prevent from any major things from happening. So don't ignore those feelings. Don't always just push them to the side. Sometimes you got to sit there in them and just understand it. But just know when you're trying to reach a goal, you're going to go through times where you just don't feel like doing something. And I would just want you to focus on the task at hand, ignore those feelings temporarily, and then just do what you know you should do. Another popular one that I heard this week, and I hear it often, unfortunately, is you can target fat with a particular workout. Now, this is true if you plan on putting like 10, 20 pounds in a particular muscle group, then yes, doing bicep curls. And if you want to put on 20 pounds on your bicep, you would notice a difference. It's not so much the fat changing, but you've expanded your arm quite a bit. The problem with this mindset is that people would do these workouts. I think the most popular one would be like bicep curls for their arms, doing a lat pull down to target their back fat, or they'll ask, what questions can I do to target my quads and take away this fat? That is just not how the body works. Again, unless you plan on putting about 20 pounds of muscle in that particular area, you want to think of just reducing your body fat. And that's more with what you're doing outside of the gym. But even to a greater extent, that has a lot to do with we really think we're made of clay. And then once we keep doing these things and we don't see that result, we end up getting frustrated, and sometimes we would just quit because we're not getting the results we expected, because this belief of I can target a particular muscle with a particular work, I can target a particular area of body fat with a particular exercise. Well, it just didn't work. Even if you're thinking of like how waist trainers work, like people think their body's just made up of clay and they can just mold themselves in. At best, the waist trainer is just going to distort your torso. You are not moving around body fat. You're not, heating it up and making it disappear. At best, you're just distorting your torso. So don't get too caught up in thinking, well, I got to do this particular exercise to hit my body fat in this particular way. Working out training can be a very important part of your long-term healthy lifestyle, but don't let that be the focal point. I always think if you're dealing with your body fat, think of the things that's outside of the gym. Now, can you spot reduce? Has always been an interesting question. Generally, I would say no, but there are certain ways you can if you're thinking more hormones. So for instance, someone that has high amounts of insulin, you can normally tell someone's body type that high amounts of insulin because they carry a lot of weight around their midsection. Sometimes they won't even have much weight everywhere else, but you can just tell their midsection seems really unproportioned when they're holding their body fat from everywhere else. So one of the ways you can target that fat around your midsection is by controlling your insulin, is by controlling your blood sugars, and that can help decrease the fat around that area. It generally would just go there because it's trying to add some protection around your organs, which is around that area. But with anything, too much body fat can cause problems. So there are certain other hormones that can have that potential benefit, where if you can control these hormones, it might help target where you're holding that body fat. But you cannot just simply spot reduce. Just like with the crunches, you cannot think, okay, well, if I just do crunches, I can target the fat around my abs. So these are just 5 fitness myths that I wanted to go over with you guys today. As always, I really hope that this was helpful and really just start to think about health differently. The best way is just to look at the people that continue to do it. Don't look at the person that has abs and be like, okay, well, they have crunches. Look at the people, because if you're not one of them, I know you know a few that's been doing crunches for years and yet they still don't have abs. Look at the person that's lifting heavy amounts of weight, but they're still not building muscle. Like one of the things I would do for me personally, I would look at a bodybuilder that's twice my size. If me and him's lifting the same weight, I would need to study what he's doing and maybe what I'm doing as just a check to make sure I'm not lifting too heavy. So just really try and look at who are these people, what's stopping them from achieving their goals, and make sure you don't follow those same habits. Now, this video will be up for Saturday. Next week, we will continue our why I failed series on injuries will be the next topic we discuss. As always, I will want you to like, follow, watch, and subscribe. And until next time, be happy, be healthy. Oh, hey, you guys are still here. Thanks for staying to the end of the video. Please watch some of the other videos on the page and subscribe.